Every modern battlefield is shaped by one decisive force, not tanks, not infantry, artillery. It has always been the god of war. And during the Second World War, no army on earth believed in the power of artillery more deeply than the United States Army. But firepower alone means nothing if it cannot move. As the German Blitzkrieg proved in 1939 and 1940, the future of war belonged to speed. Guns that couldn't keep up were useless. Armies that couldn't move were already defeated. Germany understood this problem early. Their solution was simple, brutal, and practical. Take an existing tank chassis, remove the turret, mount a field howitzer on top, and send it forward with the panzers. That idea gave birth to machines like the Wespe, a mobile artillery piece that could race alongside German armor. It was clever, it was cheap, and it worked. But the American answer was something entirely different. The United States didn't just mount a gun on a chassis. They built a complete, purpose-designed weapons system, a machine created not out of desperation, but out of doctrine, industry, and foresight. That machine was the M7 Priest, and it became so effective, so reliable, and so dominant that it quietly turned into the standard self-propelled artillery weapon for the entire Allied war effort. This is the story of two very different philosophies of war and why the American masterpiece ultimately dominated the battlefield. Let's rewind to the Eastern Front, 1941. Germany's standard artillery weapon, the excellent 10.5 centimeter Left 18 field howitzer, was accurate, powerful, and reliable. But it had one fatal weakness. It was horse-drawn. In the endless mud, snow, and vast distances of Russia, horses died, guns bogged down, and panzer divisions outran their own fire support. Germany needed mobile artillery immediately. By 1942, the Panzer II light tank was obsolete. It was too lightly armored and undergunned to survive modern tank combat. But instead of scrapping it, German engineers saw opportunity. They removed the turret, shifted the engine forward, and built a thin, open-topped fighting compartment at the rear. Into it, they mounted the 10.5 centimeter howitzer. The result was the Wespe. It was born of ingenuity and necessity. It recycled old equipment. It could keep up with panzer divisions, and it delivered indirect fire where it was desperately needed. But it was also a machine of compromise. The Wespe was cramped. Its 5-man crew worked in a tight metal box dominated by the massive breech of the gun. It carried only 32 rounds of ammunition. Its thin armor was thin enough to be penetrated by heavy machine gun fire. In prolonged engagements, it quickly ran dry and had to rely on vulnerable ammunition carriers. It was effective, but it was a stopgap. Now shift the focus across the Atlantic. As early as 1941, the U.S. Army Forces Armored Board had already identified the same problem Germany faced. Artillery had to move with armored units, it had to be reliable, and it had to deliver overwhelming firepower without pause. Early American experiments used light tank chassis, but they weren't satisfied. Then came the decision that would define the war. Instead of building small, the Americans went bigger. They based their new vehicle, the T-32 prototype, on the chassis of the M3 Lee medium tank. When standardized in 1942, it became the M7 Priest. This decision changed everything. The Priest shared its powerful Continental radial engine, rugged suspension, and mechanical reliability with front-line medium tanks. It could march with Shermans, fight beside them, and survive the same terrain and punishment. Its fighting compartment was massive. Its main weapon was the superb American M2A1 105mm howitzer, renowned for accuracy and durability. And for self-defense, it carried the legendary M2 Browning 50 caliber machine gun. That machine gun sat on a raised ring mount, giving the gunner a commanding view of the battlefield. British troops, seeing it for the first time, joked that it looked like a church pulpit. The name priest stuck. Now here's where the comparison becomes decisive. Both the Wespe and the Priest used excellent field howitzers of similar caliber. Both could deliver devastating indirect fire at ranges exceeding 11,000 yards. The difference wasn't the gun, it was everything around it. The Wespe's 32 rounds meant limited endurance. In a fast-moving battle, running out of shells could mean the difference between victory and collapse. The M7 Priest carried 69 rounds, more than double. That single fact transformed the battlefield. A Priest battery could sustain fire longer, respond faster, and maintain pressure without immediate resupply. In artillery war, endurance is power. Mobility tells the same story. The Wespe's Panzer II chassis, powered by a 140-horsepower Maybach engine, gave it decent speed for its time, but the Priest rode on a medium tank chassis with a 400-horsepower engine and wide tracks. It moved faster, handled rough terrain better, and broke down less often. Medium tank foundation versus light tank compromise. Crew experience mattered just as much. Inside the Wespe, 5 men fought for space. Hot shell casings bounced off steel walls. Commands were shouted over noise and chaos. Fatigue built fast. The Priest, by contrast, was designed around its crew. 7 men operated in a large open compartment. Tasks could be divided. Shells could be passed efficiently. Rate of fire stayed high even under pressure. War correspondent Ernie Pyle, who spent time with Priest crews, described their teamwork as extraordinary. That wasn't accidental, it was the result of design. Protection also favored the American machine. Both vehicles were open-topped, making them vulnerable to airburst artillery, but the Priest's frontal armor reached up to 51 millimeters compared to the Wespe's much thinner protection. And then there was the .50 caliber machine gun. Against infantry, against ambushes, and critically against low-flying fighter bombers, the Priest could fight back. Wespe crews armed only with light machine guns were nearly helpless against strafing attacks. Production numbers reveal the strategic picture. Germany built around 676 Wespes. The United States produced over 4,300 M7 Priests. This wasn't just a weapon, it was an industrial tidal wave. The Priest fully mechanized American artillery battalions. Under Lend-Lease, it equipped British forces in North Africa, where it played a decisive role at the Second Battle of El Alamein. The British loved it so much that they created their own version, the Sexton, inspired directly by the Priest's success. The irony is powerful. The Wespe was a brilliant improvisation born of scarcity. The M7 Priest was a masterpiece born of abundance and planning. One filled a gap, the other set the standard. By the time Allied forces pushed into Germany, artillery dominance was unquestioned. Wherever American and Allied forces advanced, the Priest was there, delivering relentless, accurate, mobile firepower. It didn't look glamorous, it didn't steal headlines, but it won battles. The M7 Priest didn't just support victory, it enabled it. And that's why this forgotten American masterpiece didn't just survive the war, it dominated it. So here's the real question. In a war remembered for tanks and aircraft, how many essential machines like the M7 Priest remain overlooked despite carrying victory on their tracks? Tell me what you think is the most underrated support vehicle of World War II and what story you want uncovered next.